and it states here that Saudi Arabia can buy General Motors, all of General Motors, Google's, Amaret, Apple, Procter and Gamble. They have $220 trillion. It's listed right here. These are not my figures. If they're wrong, it's because Bloomberg has done the research and put this in this magazine that I have been reading here. And it shows here Salam, the nephew, okay, 54, where is that? Okay. Is it 54?
56.
Oh, it's 54. See how I remembered now? You see this? See this? You see where the zeros go?
The $2 trillion prince.
$220 trillion. They can buy up General Motors, you name them, Procter and Gamble, Apple, half of our technology. And it goes back to the relationship that they had with Obama bin Laden. Because they backed him, but they were playing both sides, okay? These are people that thought that they were going to take over the United States through Obama bin Laden, but it didn't work, okay? Now, another thing I want to quantify here in this relationship of the towers that that the Saudis backed Obama on, and the towers came down. When George W. Bush stood there after the towers fell with a bullhorn, he said that he was going to resolve the problem, get these people and so forth, and the camera shifted over to the platform. And you know who was standing there? Rudy Giuliani. These are facts. And who's standing next to Rudy Giuliani? The ambassador from Saudi Arabia with a $10 million check.
Right.
These are facts, okay? And you know why they didn't make him president? Because this was in 2001, wasn't it?
Yep.
Okay? 15 years ago, Rudy Giuliani said to the Saudi Arabian ambassador, here's the check, we don't need it. He knew what was taking place. And we knew also. And you know, they blame us, and they blame for Roosevelt for having known that they were going to bomb Pearl Harbor. Yes, we know these things because of history, but we're not going to go attack anybody. But don't attack us, because if you do, you're going to get it, okay? Now, what is happening today? Here we have, as I say, you don't have to read this magazine, but you know what it says here? What's today's date?
May 6th.
Today's date, May 6, 2016. You know what the magazine says? April 24th, Saudi Arabia was not going to sell any more oil on the world market. Can you imagine that? Do you know what's taking place? Okay? So, we'll go beyond that. So they're not selling the oil. And you got Aramco, you got British Petroleum, they now are all coming into this oil thing, which is, I needn't tell you how much influence and power this has over our lives. But I'm trying to put this thing together, okay? Now, where do we go from here? I turn to China as another little blurb. The IMF, you know what the IMF is? the International Monetary Fund. The International Monetary Fund is the group of nations that is really a bank. They have to support it by their funding, okay? They have to have so much funding, and they go in to become part of the International Monetary Fund. Now, what is the purpose of the International Monetary Fund? To explain it, I'll take Greece. Greece, with the terrible political practices over 20, 30, 40 years, they belong to the International Monetary Fund. They have the right to go in and tap those funds so that their people, even though they're bankrupt, can survive. Now, China in 2008 had the reserves to go in there. Reserves mean I have the money, I want to put it in, I want to become a member of the International Monetary Fund. They will refuse. Right now, China is saying they have the funds, okay, the reserve, it's called reserve. They have the reserve to go into the monetary fund. Think of this. Greece has something like 35 million people. They go bankrupt. No country gets extinct. Nations and cultures are there, and the world will support that. They're always there, okay? But Greece with 35 million people, okay, the monetary fund can support that. China, right now, has the reserve to go in and wants to become a member. You know how many people China has? 1.5 billion. And you know the brink that China is on, whether they're viable or free of debt or anything of that nature. But you see what an imposition this is. If they were allowed to get into the International Monetary Fund and then go bankrupt or fail the way Greece has, okay? All these things are coming together, as I say, are the components that are making this thing gonna break this October 2016. On 2016, according to half a dozen of the very bright financial people I've been reading about, and even here, okay, there I go back to the Depression, right? And this is what pandemic. What's when somebody
epidemic or pandemic? Pandemic or epidemic?
Yeah, an epidemic, you realize, is a local sickness. Okay, we are headed for a pandemic, financial crisis in the world. It's been stated. Read about it. I had a third grade education. All I'm relying on is that the people that I think have the credit to write what they do, and they're coming together, so to speak, gives me the conviction to believe that before October 2015 or thereabouts, and we're having a race for our presidency in the United States, all these components are converging, and it sounds you can almost bet on it, okay? Now, the fracture of currency in the world, okay, as I have read it, all values are going to change. You got to understand that with stuff like this, the same values are not the same all over the world, so that the world is, all the components are coming together, the thing is fractured, the bigwigs, the minds are going to come together and say, well, look, we got all this debt, but the funds we have don't match the values. Let's change the values of the currency and that's the way they resolve problem in history, okay? And that is what is taking place today. So that, you made a good point. Now, let me say this, and I'm working on how to say what I have. You know, people that are just floating along, you know what I mean, they're going to be hit by it. But if you're not naive and you're reading, and the statement that you made showed me that you, and I'm glad to see that the general population is at least trying to save themselves, because if you just float along merrily along like that, and you don't know what to do, and there are things that you can do, and according to the gurus, okay, there are opportunities galore. You know why? Because the United States, although will be involved in the fracture of the currency values, is still the most important and trusted nation in the world. Now, you might not see this on your thing there, but the article shows when this currency changes value. They show two graphs. This is the United States, and this is the rest of the world. Yes, it's greater than the United States, but do you know where they're all going? Right here. So the opportunity, you know, if October were to take place as I've stated, and it is a world pandemic fracture of world currencies that are changed in values, okay, there are still opportunities for those who know what to do, and at this point, how to protect yourself. There are annuities, there are different money. I have all the statements anyway. Money that's safe, and you can earn so much every month. There are places where you can shield yourself from absolute, you know, destruction. And you got to keep your eyes open. You got to keep reading these facts. Forget the movies, forget the funny stories and the magazines and all that. Between now, May, June, July, August, September, October, we got what, 6 months. If it's true, and as I say, what do I know? It's what I read. But since I came from the greatest depression the world ever had, in 1929, 30, 31, and 32, which made the impression in my mind and in my life, I have to take very, very close look and interest in what is taking place today, period.
Could I have your name, please?
Excuse me?
Could you tell me your full name?
My full name is, I was born May 20, oh, I love this. I was born May 24th, 1915, when Woodrow Wilson was president. And a very historical fact, I was reading it in the presidential stories there, that Woodrow Wilson in his third year had a stroke. You know who ran the government? His wife made the decision. And I'm saying today, my gosh, this is a good one. Hillary Clinton is running. If she becomes president, anything happens to her.
Oh, God. Bill will run the country again.
Laugh.
All right. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Is that a fact?